fields. I would let them introduce themselves to warm them up as well, and then we'll go into the discussion. So for the structure, they will introduce themselves, say something little about what we are going to discuss, and then we move into some few questions and we take your inputs. However, if they are speaking and you want to talk, we are very flexible. You can just signal me and I'll let you in. So to start off, they say ladies first, but on this panel is the gentleman first. So Ernest, please introduce yourself and your thoughts on the question. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Enes Beko. I am Deputy Director for Policy Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation at the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations. I am also as part of the policy planning, work. I'm also the coordinator of Green Jobs at the ministry, and also coordinator of a World Bank project we call the Ghana Jobs and Skills Project, which is working to support government capacity in I mean uh, skills development, and also we should be adapting environmentally friendly uh, I mean technologies and economic activities. So in so doing, there has been a lot of research and studies, and we've been able to come up with a few projections as to the implication of this transition from what we call the brown economy to the green economy, and how it's going to impact the labor markets. I mean, particularly for the
and mill them together, and then they create fertilizer, bio, or what we call compost out of that, and then they use it on their bananas. And those bananas sell higher because they are premium bananas. They are their their specifications and the price in Europe is very high. So some of our companies have already started. When you go to the oil palm industry too, they use the is it a husk, and then the
carbon emissions and all those things. So I think it's a very good thing. And as the discussion goes on, we will know how we should, the good sides and the bad sides, in quotes, of this circular economy. Because sometimes when we stretch it too far, we need to know some of the negative effects that I think we'll be discussing about some of the solutions that we can come out of these things to make sure that whilst we are going through that circular economy and creating green jobs, it is very, very sustainable for climate change reasons, for economic reasons, and even for political reasons as well. Thank you.
To even worsen the case for women or what, because we are now advocating for women empowerment and all that. So what is this circular economy going to do on the part of women? And I think that is basically what we are here to discuss. Thank you.
A round of applause from the panelists. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Interesting discussions ahead. You want to say something?
I just want to
Feel free.
yeah,
Feel
I just
free.
want to comment, I mean, there has been some nice statements, and I just want to add to them. Okay, so I think my colleague here started talking about agriculture. I think there's a link between climate change. Most of that, and when you talk about transition, it means it's something that is new, and we are now trying to. Yes, so that is the idea. The idea is that people, I mean, at least from the ILO point of view, people are already in business. People have learned certain skills based on the brown economy for years. For example, we have somebody who is a diesel, vehicle mechanics. So now there is electric vehicles. So do you expect the person to do away with? How can such a person adjust to fit in the system. So the idea of transition is deliberate to make sure that we don't rush into some of these things and then we displace people who have been, let's say, diesel car mechanics for like 20 years, 30 years. Good. But all we are saying is that we should put in place those structures. For example, if you are introducing electric cars, make sure there is a program that trains people. Those guys who know only mechanics, diesel car mechanics, how do you train them to learn about electric cars, how to fix it? So those are the things that must be there so that we don't take people by surprise and then we create more job losses instead of job gains.
Thank you. Don't continue on efficiency. So increased efficiency and reduced demand. Is there any cause for concern in terms of any cause of worry? Because if we are being efficient by having a closed loop system where people buy things and we are encouraged
The raw materials because we are going to reuse, recycle, and all that. Then what about those doing galamsey? What about those also in the mining business? It becomes an issue for them. So what are we doing to support them? So if we are not conscious about how to support these groups of people, then we are not getting anywhere because they'll still go ahead and do it. And then it becomes a whole issue. But I think if we are very conscious about it, and then we are very careful about how to even help them, train them, give them some incentives, look for other ways of fixing them in there. Because in the long run, we are still going to need extraction again. So if you take like 5 years, within that 5 years, they are being put in other sectors. And then after the 5 years, there's a new extraction. So they have to go back and then I believe that is going to help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Choboy. So from the trade union perspective, I like the way you are linking the circular economy to agriculture, fertilizer, giving us organic food to eat and have very good health.
Again, are we closing our eyes to that aspect and then saying that if children go to the cocoa farms, they are into child labor? If they go into the oil palm farms, they are into child labor. But when they go collecting waste, as for that one, it is not. And who is talking? Nobody is talking. And the children are in there. Sometimes as early as 5:30, you see children holding sacks, collecting plastic waste before they go to school. So it's a dicey thing that we have to look at. And again, we are going to gain from it.
Thanks a lot. Professor Amwa wants to be the first person to talk before I end the first session. No, it's allowed. It's allowed. I said I would allow that. So please hand him a microphone.
Thank you very much. So we are looking at the labor participation in this whole circular economy. And I'm looking at what point do we call a child and his engagement in his father's activity child labor? At what point do we also define it as child work or acquiring experience or apprenticeship? Because all of us can attest to the fact that growing up, most of the skills we learned from our parents at home was because we followed our dad and we followed our moms. I can now at least prepare rice because at the point I was in the kitchen. Would you want to call that as child labor? So as we try to discuss this, I want us to situate well the role.
Thank you. Dr. Kakari, I saw your hand. All right.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would like to add to the discussion on the child labor issue. And I think Prof has already said the base. But even though some of us, all of us, majority of us here at one point in our life, uh, join our parents in their profession, either to the farm or to a shop or running certain errands for a particular project. He's passed away and say, oh, it's better Botoku. So I have to locate the family and pay some tributes, because the 5 lashes and a child has to is denying certain rights because he has to contribute to the family world. That is where the child abuse and then the child labor comes in. And it is very common now around some peri-urban areas like Atonsu in Kumasi. You see 5-year-old child just running ice water on the street. They don't just.
We think when a child is exposed to, you are rather, uh, exposing the child to maybe health hazard or things like that. So it's all in the interest of protecting children and making sure that people do not take advantage of them for economic gains. And we should also make sure that as we are moving into the circular economy, the work should be decent and devoid of exploitation and abuse and stuff like that. Thank you.
Dr. Sufo. So I don't know, maybe you can touch on what's the discussion briefly on the child labor, and then you share your perspective if you want.
No, it's
Okay,
been
then you can comment on the
I
first
think it's
question.
been belabored already. So okay, so I think back to what we were the question you asked Dr. was the dangers of or maybe the disadvantages and opportunities in the green economy. So you could put it under different sections. Let me pick one like technology. The difficulty or the challenge, I wouldn't say the negative thing of technology is it will call for remodeling in terms of infrastructure, how we prepare our machines and how we uh, design our work and new technologies to factor in this green, this circular economy thing, like what Mr. Mokwando, the diagram that he displayed for us. I mean, how many people can cultural waste? Advantage of this circular economy is climate change. So if we are not exploiting our resources, then it means that it's good for us, and we'll learn new ways of this repair, reuse, recycle, and all that. But there could also, let me say the last one, there are quite a number of them. Some of the another disadvantage or challenge, when it comes to people changing their behaviors towards new technologies, especially consumption, it becomes very difficult. I recently, I mean, I'm sure we've heard about that, but I was watching TV and there's meat that is grown from the lab, and some of the reasons they were giving was that, oh, this is good for climate change mitigation, effects of climate change and emission of green, because we know that when you have a lot of animals and all that, they also contribute to these dangers of climate change and all that. And I was just looking at that and say, hey, uh,
Now for your contribution. So you had your hand up. Any more hands? Okay, so we'll take yours.
Thank you very much. Talking about transitioning from linear economy to circular economy. And if I remember, the man from Ministry of Employment was making a case for the transition duration, but he failed to mention the timelines. what cost? What I'm saying is, what are the timelines for the transition and at what cost? I'm asking this question because I saw somewhere that the duration is from now to 2070 at $600 billion. I don't know whether it's coming from your end. I'm yet to check the source. You haven't seen that one? Okay, I will quickly dash to my room because I made a photocopy of that. Unfortunately, I've forgot it in my room. I should have brought it. So after this,
benefit, looking at the job losses, we should also look at our health. It's not better that we have little money that we get from the new, the green, or the using of the organic, than to get money trying to sustain the jobs for those who are using or producing the chemical fertilizers? That's my question. And
Thank you very much. Let me place this in context before we continue. So the follow-up on the chemical fertilizer, it is not to encourage chemical fertilizer production. But as trade unionists, you are supposed. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I'll let her. Emilia, you know the questions addressed to you. And then Ernest, somebody addressed the question to you, right? The man who dashed to the room, or you wait for the evidence?
No, my simple answer is no.
He's not here.
No,
So,
he asked the question whether
no, let him come. Maybe he's coming with
no, the
evidence.
man in smoke. He asked the question whether he stopped school garden because of challenge.
Okay, so you address his and we wait for the facts.
Yes. So
Okay.
the simple answer is no. Because I believe when we were doing school garden, you have your teacher there to guide you, do this, do that, don't do that. I mean, there was some, form of, supervision.
About 10 bags and bought a pickup. So immediately the girlfriend left the bicycle owner for the pickup owner. So the chemical fertilizers have become so attractive to the farmers, even though they know that eventually, because they are seeing the brunt of it now. When you farm for a certain number of years, you see that you cannot. So you apply more fertilizer. And in some cases, it even kills not the micro your plant itself, because you've applied too much fertilizer, so you don't get anything in the end. But then to transition from that to the compost, they say that the compost, making your own compost, is too tedious. And then the compost also generates some, doesn't become this the normal Ghanaian policies which sits on the shelves of the ministry. Sure that we walk the talk. Then we are going to see some changes in there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions? Okay, Daryl. Oh, sorry, you had the microphone. Okay, sorry.
So I want to know that what are the prospects for green jobs and greening activities? Thank you.
All right, Dr. Ishan.
Yes,
Daryl, you go.
right. Thanks. Madam Emilia, when you mentioned that that is what they have, the farmers, they are interested in using the chemicals. I said to myself, what's the alternative for them? Right? In as much as people have made it their job to produce the chemicals for them, so should we, interested in green jobs, also make it our job to also.
Okay, thank you. So I think maybe my question is directed towards the officer from the Ministry of Employment. Is it? Okay. I want to find out how deliberate government is about really pushing the circular economy and the green jobs in policy and in the fiscal regime. Because every year, if you look at the budget